The business behind this podcast is called Bit Famous, and we believe workplace confidence is the key to success. That's because confident colleagues build successful teams. In turn, they create happier organisations that can fulfil their purpose. To find out how we can help your organisation drive growth and engagement through confident communication, just Google Bit Famous and hit the big red button for a no-obligation chat. Right, on with the show.
You're listening to the Penny Haslam Podcast. This time, when you know about them, you can do more of those things. Self-awareness can really be developed from looking at your values. A high-quality decision in a reasonably short amount of time. Anyway, no one likes the guy. It's basically the upshot of that is. And guess what? There's low engagement, low morale, and there's a high churn of individuals. Today on the podcast, I want to talk about values. And I don't mean the kinds of values that a company would come up with or an organisation would come up with, like excellence or one team or caring. No, I'm talking about you and your values. Now, I misspell it. Obviously, we don't have a slide deck here right now, but if I did have a PowerPoint presentation in front of you, you would see that my spelling of values is Val-Yous, Val-Yous, right? Got it? And the reason I do it like that is to remind people that this isn't company values, organisationals, vision, mission, purpose, and the values all wrapped around that, and how we behave and how we treat each other and all the rest of it, which is really commonplace, really well known about. We'll see values written on people's websites, on mouse mats, if people still use mouse mats. And also I've seen them even in the atrium or the lobby area behind reception of organisations when I go through the doors. And I'll see our values are. And yeah, they're great to have. Really, really good. But not that many people on a regular basis stop and think about their own personal values. And there's real value in thinking about your values. Research has shown that, and this is why I'm saying 10 minutes, research has shown that people who write about their values once for just 10 minutes show benefits months and even years later. Now, this isn't something that is just about your home time, your personal time. This is an activity, a process, a thing to have that will enable you to be more confident at work and feel more secure in yourself. Now, who doesn't want a bit of that? So the research has shown that when people spend just 10 minutes writing about their values, there are a few outcomes, which is it's easier to make big life decisions around pursuing passions, career goals, and relationships. Now, that would be lovely because often when we're making decisions, we need to make them quite quickly. And we know the discomfort of dithering over a decision, don't we? It can be something that we might be grappling with for hours, weeks, months, years even. Should I not? Could we not? Oh, let's just make a decision. And what's really required in the workplace these days, especially from leaders, is to make a high quality decision in a reasonably short amount of time. Now, if you're not doing that, then maybe writing about your values and listing your values is a good start. Why not? It's not going to cost you anything other than a few minutes of your time. The other outcome that the researchers found was that you're less likely to engage in destructive thought patterns, especially in difficult life situations. Now, difficult life situations, you tell me, what are difficult life situations? Well, it could be a big life event, a bereavement, a divorce, moving house, or it could be simply a difficult life situation in that you've got a workplace that doesn't really sing to you, the culture is a bit of a challenge sometimes, or one of the individuals within that organisation is a bit of a pain in the arse, let's face it. So it doesn't matter what a difficult life situation and how it's defined is, but you're less likely to engage in destructive thought patterns. Now, isn't that brilliant? Because if you can begin to master your self-talk and get on top of how you talk to yourself, are you supporting yourself or are you trash talking yourself, then you can be a better friend to yourself inside your own head. And thirdly, there are 4 of these ideas actually. The third idea is that you have greater self-discipline and focus when studying or working. Now, if someone had told me 20 years ago, here's a tincture, like a little bottle of drops, and if you took 5 of them on your tongue, you'd have greater focus and self-discipline when you're studying or working, I would have bitten their hand off for this, because I, and typically now, tend to go a little bit all over the place. And we hear about this the world over, don't we? Being productive or being distracted. And wouldn't a bit of extra focus be really wonderful from time to time? And finally, your social connections are stronger. Now, I particularly like this aspect, this research that's found that your social connections are stronger when you understand your values, who you are, what you stand for, what you stand up for. And the reason I love this one so much is because social connections are pretty much the consistent finding of the Harvard study into happiness, the human condition. What makes us content, happy, satisfied with life? What has shown up for Harvard year after year, for the last 100 years, they've been doing this survey, is social connections. Friends, family, colleagues, neighbours, other community people who you connect with. If you don't have that, it's lonely, and therefore your happiness is lower. I mean, it's not rocket science here, but it's interesting that even though people's disposable income has changed, their living environments have changed, and their opportunities for work and growth have changed, the main thing that remains in this review every year is that social connections are really important. So, putting those 2 ideas together, we've got research from Kelly McGonigal, who's an author, and her books are easy to read and fantastic. The most recent one I've read is called The Upside of Stress, which is not stressful at all to read that, actually. I was thinking it might be, but there are some upsides to stress, and she puts that argument forward very well. But she has done a lot of work on values. So that's where that research comes from. And putting it together with the Harvard University research on, how we all feel about ourselves is really clever of me, I think. It's actually what I was going to say. I think it's really smart of me to think about social connections. So yeah, why is all of this important in the workplace? Well, some of those things speak for themselves, don't they? You're able to support yourself more strongly. Is that the right word? With greater strength. It's also, I think, what I'm seeing from the work that I do with leaders in the types of group coaching I do or group sessions and training I do, is that self-awareness can really be developed from looking at your values. And when you look at your values and you get greater self-awareness, you can think about developing your personal brand, for example. You can think about how you enable others, for example. So the self-awareness, just to bring in yet another piece of research, this time from a couple of researchers whose names I can't pronounce, but I'm sure it'll be around on the documentation somewhere, from a paper called Frontiers in Psychology, or a magazine called Frontiers in Psychology from a few years ago in 2021. They declared from their research that self-aware leaders are, and get this, again, a superpower, they are more effective, empathetic, and capable of inspiring their teams to achieve more significant results. Now, if you're a leader and you think that your own personal impact success is not as important as other things like knowing how to do things or getting people to do things, then think again, because your personal impact is crucial for your team's success. So how do you have greater personal impact? Well, you just get to know yourself a bit more and really begin to understand how you might leverage what you've got, the great things that you bring, and maybe how to dial down some of the other stuff that's not so useful. So a recent example I heard was of one of my siblings who's got a new boss, and the new boss has impatience. has impatience, is entirely impatient. So my brother is trying to learn how to do the job. It's quite a high level job. So he needs to hear it once and then move on. And sometimes there's complexity involved in some of those learnings. And so what does he do? Well, he just goes back to his boss and asks the question, oh, could you just explain that one more time? Or I've looked at this. Am I missing something? Because in the old place, we used to do it like this. Can you just fill in the gap for me? Quite straightforward questions, I think. Quite reasonable. But then I am only hearing my brother's side of the story, I suppose. This guy, apparently his boss says, do you not understand this yet? Oh, goodness me. Honestly. And he's really frustrated with him and really does it in public as well. It's not even like private feedback that should be taken seriously. It's just like this. Anyway, no one likes the guy. It's basically the upshot of that is. And guess what? There's low engagement, low morale, and there's a high churn of individuals. So if you're listening to this and you're an HR leader, for example, and you're tasked with retaining people, then if we were to start thinking about how self-awareness can come about in our lovely leaders, how could you help them and support them? Well, one easy thing to do is to encourage people to think about their values, not your company values, not your organizational values, their own personal beliefs and values. And it's a lovely exercise to do. It really is. You get to think about yourself for a while. What drives you? What motivates you? What was in place when you were at your best? What was present or not present when you were struggling? Thinking about your future life. What do you envision for yourself? And what aspects of life are most important to you? Even things like what drives you to make certain decisions or engage in particular activities. Now, I had a coaching client recently who said, I'm generally quite instinctive as to how I make decisions and how I go about making sure the team are with me and that sort of thing, which is great if it's all going well and there are no major challenges. But being instinctive and not knowing about what steps you took or how you arrived at it or how it made you feel or engaging with others and how it made them feel is not particularly useful for doing more of the same and having greater success in the future, because you might be putting some missteps along the way that you needn't have done. So reflection is all part of this. Self-reflection. We say, don't we, hold the mirror up. Now, I never really understood that phrase because it just sounded a bit strange. And like you'd look at yourself and go, right, well, that's that then. Even there's nothing you could do about. What the real context for holding the mirror up is you hold the mirror up, work out on reflect what's in front of you, what you've got going on inside your head and how you behave, your personal brand perhaps. And then you can decide what you do about that, whether you change things, increase things or decrease things and behaviours. And I dare say that my brother's new boss doesn't really have much of a mirror available to him. Or maybe someone suggested it in the past and he said, for goodness sake, we don't need that. Have you not learned yet? And he's really impatient about it. So yeah, you've got to like knock on an open door with this sort of stuff. And if you're a leader and you want to drive more success in your team, then the really good starting point or a good place to inquire and maybe be more productive as a result of is looking at yourself, developing your self-awareness. So thinking about your Val-Yous is a really good starting point for that. What do you believe in? What do you stand for? What do you stand up for? And really all the things that make you you, when you know about them, you can do more of those things. A friend of mine has got her values written on the front of her notebook. And every time she gets a new notebook, she puts her values back on the front of the notebook. And she says it really helps her lean into doing more of what her values are. And so being friendly or being clear are her values. And therefore, she can be more clear and more friendly, etc. She may have some others on there, but those are the ones we talked about. And that can be really self-validating. Actually, I am that person and that person works really well for me in my life, in how I operate with people and how I can be a success in the way that I would like to be. Thanks for listening.